Okay, I call the meeting to order at 12 o'clock. Pursuant to MGL 7C 30A, Section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video, or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body, may transmit the meeting through any medium. Beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recording. This meeting is being recorded by the Berkshire Edge, CTSB, and the town of Great Barrington. Any members of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. We'll start by calling to order the Select Board and Finance Committee joint meeting. And it says discussion FY27 budget policies and procedures, which this will be part of the budget policies and procedures. It's a finance committee proposed cap on yearly borrowing that would go into those policies. Rich, do you want to explain it?
Sure.
Thank you.
As a committee, we asked to speak with the acting manager and all the finance people in town. And we asked them to come to our committee meeting and discuss the procedures that go on during the year to actually start the process towards borrowing for capital projects. So we often spend a lot of time talking about at town meeting, the town agreeing to allow for borrowing on projects. But there is a process each year where they're trying to make sure that all their ducks are in a row for projects to go forward, make sure that they're essential, make sure in what order these projects need to be actually handled. And there have been years recently where a lot of projects have been moved forward without keeping in mind how much the town can actually afford currently to do all the projects. And then we've had large spikes in our debt service that results from borrowing of like 7 to 11 million a year or something. That's not a sustainable level, we feel, for yearly borrowing. Historically, probably 3 to 4 million seems like a normal range. And it would also, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think from management's point of view, it would help their processes by keeping everyone in mind that they have to look towards staying within a certain cap each year. So the whole file that we have of maybe $10 million of approved possible borrowing is then goes through a process. It has to go through a process to be sure that we're ready to borrow the money so we don't borrow it too soon. But we have now, I think, in these difficult fiscal times to take another step and make sure that we rein it in as much as possible. So this is our recommendation. This falls within what was historically normal yearly borrowing. We understand that extreme things can happen, but we think it would be a good addition to the way we do business each year to add this cap. So we bring it to you. We discussed it among ourselves. We kind of came up with this general plan. But does anyone on the select board have questions, maybe of Chris or Ally or us, that might clarify the need and the benefit of this?
Yeah, I think the only, I'll let Eric go. I think the only thing I want to see is when we do the budget policies and procedures for FY27, how it's worded. Because I don't want it to be a hard cap myself. That doesn't mean that it can be 10 million or there's no sense of having it. But I don't want to see if there's a need to make it 5 or 5.5 for some reason, that it would take 3 meetings and it would, because the town meeting has already approved this. And as you point out, this could be from previous town meetings, it gets too much. And I agree with the concept. I just want to see how it's worded.
I think maybe we could have a statement that, we need this is what our goal is. And only in extreme situations do we see approving borrowing over that level. I mean, there may be those moments.
Well, the question is who, right now, once the town meeting approves it, there's no other approval, the borrowing's good to go. So my question is, the devil's in the details. Are we gonna say that the select board and finance committee has to approve anything over 4.5, 5? Or is it that this is a recommendation if administration needs to borrow more than anything under 5, they can do that? They're just in the details. You see what I'm saying?
Do you have a recommendation for wording?
Yeah, I wanna leave it as loose as possible, but I think with the trust in administration, if a year something happens and they have to borrow 7 million, that they would come back to both of us and say, you know, this is an extraordinary year, and maybe.
I guess, and from my perspective, I think extraordinary is the key term. There has to be some way to say that this particular situation, well, I mean, the bridge that everyone approved at town meeting would be a good example of an extreme need, right? Because that increased our borrowing by 3 million.
What's tricky about that, though, is that we knew that going into town meeting,
Yes,
that was, and town meeting approved it.
right.
So bureaucratically, are we gonna have to then go back and approve it again?
Well, I don't think so, because we already have the approvals in hand, but we need to have kind of language that doesn't leave it too loosey-goosey,
Exactly.
that we can all just, oh, well, we'd really like more.
Yeah.
That's not enough, I think. I think we have to have something that is a little tough and then has to come back to, if it's just the select board, but it has to come back to one of us, I think the select board, to like determine, is this really exigent circumstance?
Yeah, it might be, and then I'll let Eric go.
Okay,
Is that $4 million recommended, any borrowing over 5 million would have to come back to the select board.
how about 3 million recommended, any borrowing over 4 million would have to come
Okay,
back to
yeah.
the select.
It's up to the board, but
I'm just trying to suggest that we have to have something that's a little tough to make everybody not just think, okay, it's already been approved, I can go.
Right, and it's not including grants, it's just borrowing.
No,
Yeah.
this is strictly borrowing, so our normal November actually going out for borrowing. That's what we're trying to look at.
And we might have to be wise enough that if we're borrowing something that's $3 million ahead of time, just to waive this in November when we recommend it to town meeting. Or January, whenever we do it, say, you know,
Just so that we have something on paper that it's not just I think as low as a suggestion is too low.
yeah, I agree.
It has to be something that this is the way we would like business to be handled in the town for the upcoming year. And if it goes beyond this, then we need to discuss it.
Yeah. My only point being is that if for some reason we all recommend $6 million to the annual town meeting, like it's extraordinary, I don't think we need to make everybody jump through hoops again.
Well, I think the process of going through the approval during the budget process ought to be sufficient.
I agree.
As long as we have this wording in our, because it's really up to management to try to guide this and cap this. I mean, we're giving them extra tools in order to bring everything bring it down within a certain reason. And there will be times when we would like more, but is it the right time? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that all of us have to deal with these kinds of issues whenever we're looking at a budget. We have to think, how much is a want, how much is a need? And I think only extreme needs should go over that.
I agree. Eric, go ahead.
So, I guess just to make sure I'm completely clear, because I mean, with Steve going back and forth, I believe I understand it, but to be completely clear about it, not only are we talking about the budget that we're proposing this coming year, but you're talking about total amount of money spent even in previous. So say we go to town meeting and it comes in, we're asking for $3 million worth of capital grants. And, but then there's a bit of a backlog at the same time that all get completed at the same time. Are we suggesting by this that we're taking in consideration all the work that's getting completed, or just what we're proposing to this coming year's town meeting?
We're proposing that this is the cap on what we actually borrow
Yeah,
in the year.
in that year, so,
So we have a lot of approvals.
Right.
We have $10 million of approvals. And there are processes that, things have to be ready to go forward, but even more so, we're suggesting a cap so that when it comes time for November and we're actually going out for bonds
mhm,
on the parts that aren't covered already by grants,
mhm,
that is capped at 3 to 4 million. So that takes into account everything that is possible to borrow and saying, but we're keeping it in line and not going for everything, not
Right.
allowing, we're trying to have another fail-safe, another way to hold back
yeah.
the continued increased borrowing.
Yeah.
Does that make more sense?
It does make more sense. I just, so not only what we're putting forward, but also stuff that's already been approved, previous
All of it,
town meetings.
all of it.
So it's the total take, so that. I mean, yeah, that falls on, that's
It's
not
really-
only us approving it, but also. Town staff and everything,
Yes.
keeping a close eye on it, but it could also slam the door shut on projects that are halfway done.
No.
Is what we have to be clear
You
about.
can't.
I don't think
No.
that's the intent. I think the intent is we need to keep these guidelines in mind
Right,
before we start to agree to move forward and have contracts signed and everything. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about being realistic before those steps are taken.
mhm,
You're looking at a project now that there's enough groundwork done to move forward, but we're saying now you have to put it through another sieve and decide, is this something that we need to the level that we need to afford it now, or can we continue to wait on those projects?
mhm.
I'm just trying to avoid large spikes.
Yeah, no, and I understand what the intention is here. I'm just trying to make sure that we're aware about any other things that this could disrupt, and as far as, I understand putting it forward for budgets coming forward, but I worry about, just things, and let's just call it like the backlog of work that needs to be done or that's already been approved. I just worried about that with a combination of unforeseen like overages or something that may come about.
So, Eric, I think a couple things. I think the impetus for this was a couple years ago. And it's lagging a little behind when we were behind in borrowing.
Right.
And all of a sudden we borrowed all at once to do a whole bunch of projects. And 2.5 years worth of town meetings approval all got forward at once.
Right,
So I understand your point. I think this, and I want to hear Ally and Chris speak also about this. I think this kind of forces us to stay current on borrowing
mhm,
and not ask for the next year. If we haven't borrowed anything from the year before or only have, then the next year, be aware of that.
be aware of it.
But the other thing I think we have to be aware of, let's use Ramsdale as hopefully at some point Ramsdale gets approved and that's 5 million. I would want that excluded from this, because everything can't stop in town for one large project. So if we have a large project, I would say that this would be in addition to. Because if we're gonna do one project, that means no road work, we're just gonna fall behind.
Well, I think one has to be realistic as to what the town needs. And the road work is essential at a certain level, right?
Right, but if the town's approving, Ramsdale Library, let's say, in 2, 3, 5 years, whatever it's a being, the townspeople have spoken. So that,
It's true, but I think that the townspeople expect administration and us to realistically fund all of these projects. I mean, all of these projects may be approved, but if, I don't think we're going against the will of the people to say that we are keeping in mind what the taxes are going to be to fund all of the projects that have been approved, to fund them all at once, I think is not prudent for the taxpayer.
no, you and I are agreeing on that. Ben,
Sure, yeah, but just to follow that example, so if we do come up with needing 5 million for Ramsdale and it's not excluded from this, does that mean we're essentially saying to the town, we have to make a choice between doing Ramsdale this year and doing roads? And then does that kick the can on doing Ramsdale indefinitely, because we'll always need to do road improvements?
Yeah, I don't want it to do that. That's my point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want it to do that. I think the people make a informed decision to do Ramsdale, let's say, as an example, that it's not one or the other. It's, I think the point of this, as I understood from the finance committee, was to prevent spikes in town meeting approved borrowing projects. You know, that,
Yes,
but when a project comes before the voters that is unique and separate, and it's a large project, I don't think it's either or. I think the voters can say, that's okay, we want both. That's just my opinion, Garfield.
I can understand what Richard's saying. I'm all about saving some money and not spending it frivolously. I'm not saying we're doing frivolous spending, but I get it. We want to keep things manageable, and when Richard, I think to me, the key word then was taxes. We pay a lot in this town, more than many other towns. And to up the taxes without real good cause, it's not a good idea as far as I'm concerned. I understand about the example of the 5 million if we needed it. That's something that would actually be needed, but I don't wanna say, well, let's go outfit the rest of the office, if you will, just as a broad example. I'm gonna say, I don't think so. Okay, that's not needed. The roads are needed, Hampstead's needed, but we're gonna keep it capped. I agree with that part.
Do we have a definition of extreme that we're working with?
something I would say unexpected and urgent.
Hmm.
That would be my suggestion. It was
Critical, urgent.
critical, urgent.
Yeah.
Not something that can be put off, or the whole building will fall down, or the whole,
Or the state mandates something.
Yeah.
right.
Ally, do you wanna weigh in on this?
Sure, actually.
Yeah, would you please, just so at home can hear you.
Hands online.
Oh, good.
So I think, I guess what I'm reading into all of this is a few years ago, we had an $11 million borrowing, permanent borrowing, which added about $1 million into the municipal budget, which significantly increased our overall budget. So I think what they're trying to do here is try to limit that. Many towns, a large project, instead of doing that whole large project in one fiscal year, will have phases where they do the first phase in 1 year and the next phase to try to keep that down. So essentially, it'll work like the same way department heads budget their operating expenses, they have to budget their capital expenses as well. To just keep in mind that at the end of the year, we have to fill that deficit, so we have to borrow. We don't have a choice.
Right.
So we weren't really backlogged in borrowing, we were backlogged in the projects, and then they all got done in 1 year, which caused us to have to borrow $11 million.
I think having a cap allows staff to have a goal so that when we develop a capital improvement plan, we know what the target is. That's why it's something that would go in your policy, in your budget policy. So if a cap is 4, And we know there's $1 million of work that is being done. It's in the process. We know it's gonna hit the books and be completed. We're gonna have to borrow for that in June. That $1 million worth of backlog work has to be accounted for, so. Then we have $3 million left to think about for the next year. It just helps. It helps us build a realistic capital improvement plan for you. Rather than coming to you, for example, with a CIP that looks like, $10 million in each of the next 5 years. And you tell us in February to walk that back by 8 million. We can start in the right place. Having started with prioritizing the projects based on what is in the backlog. What's ready to be funded by a matching state grant? Are we ready to do that? We have a better asset management system in place now for our buildings and roads, so we have a better idea of where that sort of infrastructure is landing. It's just a better way for us to plan. It should, in theory, avoid those spikes of $11 million of borrowing. There may always be something that comes up, and there will always be hard choices, but I think that is something that you've been asking the staff to make, and we'll be able to hopefully do that as we prepare the CIP with that cap in mind.
So town staff approves this, they think this is a good idea and would like to move it forward.
I think it's better to know what your policy is upfront and early. Rather than putting in the capital improvement plan everything we think needs to be done and we should be doing, which is inevitably going to be multi-millions, $10 million or more every year. So let's prioritize the projects and try to stay under whatever cap it is that you might set. It's
Well
another
said.
tool, as Rich said.
Benefit of making this a hard cap with necessary approvals rather than a guideline given to department heads?
I think a hard cap would be exceedingly difficult to work with. It should be a guideline for staff to develop the CIP, to come to you during budget season, for you to approve or disapprove, and then for the voters at town meeting to say yes or no. I think a hard cap where we're always sort of falling behind is not the way to go.
Yeah, I agree. Ann O'Dwyer, let the minute show, has joined the meeting online. Ann, go ahead. Your hands up.
Hi, thanks all. Sorry I joined a little bit late, but I think I've caught most of the conversation. And I will say, I mean, I like everything I've heard. I think this is a really great idea. I support what my colleagues on the finance committee have said, and to hear the town staff and the select board sort of expressing interest in this. The only thing I would have to add is that, would it make sense to talk about a rolling cap, sort of a 3-year average? So there might be a year where we borrow more and then we borrow more. So I still think, if we only sort of analyze year to year to year to year, it sort of gets harder. But in listening to how we can, approve in one town meeting, but then the spending happens over several years, it might be that creates that rolling effect. So I don't know if I'm understanding it correctly.
You might be right, Ann. It might essentially be a rolling. Again, it's a guideline and a tool. If it were a hard cap, I'd be much more interested in the details of how we average this thing out over several years. And I should note that, this is general fund borrowing. This is debt service on the general fund, not the wastewater enterprise fund or not the CPA. Those are different funds funded separately, yes, we still have to borrow, but we're talking about general fund obligations.
And is the idea is to put this into the budget policy? Is that,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Phil, go ahead.
Yeah, on that point, I mean, I was asking if this is gonna go into the budget policy. My understanding of that budget policy is that that entire document is a guideline. There's no, it's not state law, it's not local. There'll be no sort of enforcement mechanism associated with it.
I guess the only enforcement would be enforcement. The only somewhat enforcement would be guidelines as administration is doing their work, developing what they're expected to go forward. I mean, those are not expected to be easy, simple conversations all the time. And I'm just hoping that this is another tool that helps administration to keep borrowing in line.
Phil, I would say this, it depends, as you read the document, how it's worded. We could word this as a hard cap, and then it's not law, but it's just, it can't go over 3 million. I'm not in favor of that. We could do that, but it doesn't, that's not in the spirit of how this has been written.
Yeah, I'm certainly not advocating it be a hard cap, but I just, as a very technical matter, I don't think we're not set up to do that. Right? The whole policy document is the guideline.
Yeah.
So we're just adding another guideline.
Yeah.
So.
And I would assume it makes it easier for Ally and Chris and the next town manager going into budget season saying, okay, this is a guideline for how we're working on a budget. That we're not gonna propose borrowing of $7 million when you have in yours a recommendation no more than 4.
And by the way, we've got 3 from last year that we still haven't done yet, that's gonna hit your books next fall. You know, or something
Yeah.
like, so that makes us better plan for what has been previously authorized and not yet issued.
But,
I just think that it sends a signal to the taxpayers, the residents of this town, that we're taking this seriously, we've heard them. And the optics are, we're really trying to rein this in, and I think that's always a good thing.
And we'll see if it works well or not.
Phil, go ahead.
Couple of points. One is, I certainly agree with the spirit of this initiative. But one question I have, and it's always a question of this type of idea is like, how do you get the 3 or 4 million? Why is that the right number? There's sort of inherently going to be some randomness to that. Some people will say 3 or 4 million is way too high, and others will say it's way too low. So how do we get to that number?
Well, I think
Can-
that Ally could speak to that. Do you need to say something, Ann?
Go ahead, Rich, why don't you go ahead and I'll jump in, but I think we're gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, I think that Ally, we worked with Ally and she did a historical look at borrowing over a longer period of time. And 3 to 4 million is an average, which made sense for the town and for many years. I mean, there were many years where it was 1 to 3, but it's an average. 3 to 4 million made logical sense. And I think right now we're in this place where there's a lot of work that everyone wants to get done. And on paper, the idea is 7 to 10 looks like a good place to be. And we do not think that that is a good place that the town can afford. We think that we have to look at the historical as a guideline, and that's where we came up with 3 to 4.
So the way it's worded, I'd like to make sure that there's not sort of an implicit floor being created on the annual borrowings.
Like a maximum of 3 to 4.
Again, I mean, you could very easily.
1 to 4.
I wouldn't wanna be in a meeting where we're at 2.5 and we say, well, we need to get to.
You haven't been on this long enough to know that's not gonna happen.
It's optimistic thinking, but I just probably know where.
Yeah.
I think the devil, as I said, I'll repeat myself, I think now the finance committee needs to come back to us with something in writing. Cause there will be details that we're gonna talk about.
Yes.
But if I may, just one
Of course.
last, I actually think, at the end of the day, if this is helpful to the town manager and the town accountant, that's a good thing, period, full stop. I would say that it's more important to me going forward that when we go through the approval process and the capital approval process, the budget time, that when we try to have some debt service price tags associated with the projects as we look at them. I think it's been informative to sort of look at, as a recent example that we all are aware of, the school, the Long Mountain School Class Calculator. So there we have this mega project, and we've been able to all easily convert that for good or for bad into exactly what it's gonna cost us in our tax bill. And it makes it a very tangible exercise, whereas when we, in the past, when we've gone through the CapEx list, we got no, we're all in this together, I'm not blaming anyone for anything, but we go through that list and there's sort of an abstractness to it, like, well, 2 million for that versus 3 million for that. It's not connected to what is it actually gonna cost us in our tax bill.
Right.
And I think the reason why we haven't done that in the past, as I understand it, based upon conversations with Ally and her predecessor, is that we're just not set up to put out debt service estimates in that process, because they're inherently estimates and we know they're gonna be wrong, they're estimates. But we've been able to get over that hurdle for the high school project, and I'd love to see us do something similar, in our regular capital budget process. It has more work, clearly, than people that I'm looking at right now, but I think it's just incredibly helpful. I would like us to, hopefully this will add discipline to our funding process, but I think to the extent we could add this element to our authorization process up front, I think that would be terrific as well.
The idea would be to show you a proposed project list for X fiscal year and say, assuming we borrow it at this time, at this
Right.
term, the borrowing costs will add X to the next year.
Right.
And I think that will help everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky because you have to assume the term. and
Of course.
rate. No one loves to do that and then be wrong.
But with every capital project you see, you'd be able to see where does it rank in terms of, this cap, what are the debt service impacts, when do we think that will hit? It can be up by 28, 29, whenever, and for how long. And then that helps us build out all the out years as we do the next CIP. So we know what's in the
And
books.
I'm very cognizant of the challenge of that that's all theoretical, that the actual process of getting that work done.
Very much.
Contractors to show up.
Very much a
The
moving
pipes
target.
and the girders.
Yeah.
That's all incredibly complicated and out of our control.
Yeah. But there's no reason that can't be done. What I would say, and all of your budget meetings are very important. It is a wonderful time for you to hear from your department heads, in terms of what they're doing and what their goals for the coming year are. It's really important. And we spend a lot of time on that. But we spend comparatively little time on capital, which, as I said before, that and health insurance and the school are the major drivers of your budget. And we spend comparatively little time on that. So you may, one of these years, flip-flop.
Yeah, that's a
Spend
great idea.
4 nights on capital and 1 night on ops.
Mhm.
I'm a little bit facetious there, but.
No, I think it's a great point.
But the importance of capital to your budget should not be underestimated.
You're telling me the $500 in the travel line on the planning board shouldn't be discussed for 45 minutes?
Well, I think that what Chris just said is one of the impetuses for trying to do this. I mean, we spend a lot of time looking at what we're offering to the town at town meeting, but there's so much work that goes on throughout the year that builds projects to be funding ready. And anything that we can do to offer a guideline or offer any assistance to administration to try to reasonably hold these costs down while giving us the services we need is what we ought to do.
And so
Sure.
maybe to wrap it all up, I
Yeah.
would say that I don't think we should be we shouldn't have a negative reaction to town staff when we actually implement the plan, the capital project that we approved. So that to me is, I never want that to be sort of, you know, part of our thought process or part of anyone's thought process. So if we don't want something done, then we shouldn't have approved it up front.
Well, I'm not saying that we won't do them. I think that, you know, the taxpayers are reasonable when they've approved something. They see the point of having that. But we have some approvals that are very old approvals, that are very large approvals, say for culvert work and other such things that are not spent all at once, and they involve many, many projects that come up over the years. I mean, these are the kinds of approvals that fit very well into this suggestion, because only some of those projects are ready to move forward, and then some of them are urgent, and some of them have to move forward. And you make those decisions each year. So I think that decisions are made with a general idea of how much we're going to spend all the time. We're just trying to put it on paper that we want to keep it to historical limits.
Anyone else? So we'll look forward to you
So we
coming
will
back to
continue
us.
to work on this and
Yeah.
incorporate it into the budget policy.
Yes,
If there's someone from select board who we could work with on language, I would be happy to work with someone.
but I think you present
We'll
something to us.
present it and,
Yeah,
and then I'll come to whatever meeting
Yeah.
you're talking about it, and we'll discuss it in detail.
Usually
Yeah.
budget policies in November,
at latest, yeah.
October, November.
Yeah, so, you know, it would be helpful if you came with the budget policies. Usually the changes are few, and then
We're
include
gonna
this in
look at
it.
our next meeting, which is gonna be what our major thing in our next meeting.
Okay.
October, and we will try to do as much as we can to listen to everything that you all have said so eloquently. Any other things from anyone? Thank you very much.
Hold on, I got someone.
Thank you.
Hold on 1
Oh,
second.
we have something from the post, yes.
Okay, 2 people. Eileen, you go ahead, and then Claudia.
Okay, Eileen Rooney, the newsletter. Are you pretty much agreed on a 3 million to 4 million cap?
I don't think we've said that yet. Phil, Rich has said 3 million, I had said 4, so let's see what the finance committee recommends.
Thank you.
Yeah, Claudia, go right ahead.
Claudia Shapiro, 78 Egmont Plain Road. So I attended the last finance committee meeting, and the finance committee proposed just under 3 million, like 2.8 million. And Ally, you proposed 7.5 million. You were asked about the quote, big projects, but nobody disclosed what the big projects were. So I'm here tonight to ask exactly what, between the 2.8 million and the 7.5 million, what big projects you're talking about. I know that Ann O'Dwyer said there must be some big projects between now and November. November's a month away. So what are the big projects, if you don't mind me
I believe the
asking?
2.8 million was for short-term borrowing, and the 7 million was for long-term borrowing. So they're two
But
different
that's not my
questions.
question. My question is exactly precisely, what are the big projects? You were asked and your answer was, yeah. We didn't answer what the big projects were, so I'm here tonight asking what the big projects were.
And it wasn't said tonight, was it?
No, it was at the finance
Okay,
committee.
they'll get back to you then. They'll have to look and see what they're talking about. I have no idea.
So it would have been a summary of projects, like road projects, culvert projects and things like that,
Well, I know
are
you,
in process, so.
and that's what was mentioned, roads and bridges, and then Ally, you said, I guess streets, right, Chris, and you just nodded your head, but you're not answering my question.
Well, that's because they don't have it in front of them, and it was talked at the last meeting, so I'd rather they give
We're
it to you.
talking over $4 million that nobody, you don't have even, you can't tell me one project that's included in the 4 million? I didn't expect to get an answer, but anyway, so I have a comment to, Mr. Orenstein about the tax calculator for the school. Is that not an estimate? Isn't the whole school budget an estimate, the 152 million or whatever it's up to?
No, that would be the amount of borrowing that the school is going to go
Right, but is the
forward.
tax calculator, is that an estimate that how much our taxes are gonna go up, or is it?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, quickly. There are variables in there.
It's absolutely an estimate, based on
Yeah,
an
thanks.
estimated interest
Thank
rate of the actual borrowing, the actual date of the borrowing, and the.
So we really don't know where we stand right now.
Well, we certainly have,
An idea,
we
but we
have.
don't.
It won't be higher.
Yeah,
It may be
range of
lower.
outcomes,
Yeah.
And the tax calculator is trying to give you the middle of the range.
Yeah, thanks for answering. So I do have another question, because I hear this thrown away around a lot. When you say staff, who is staff?
It depends what department. It would be department heads, it would be the town manager, assistant town manager. They're all staff.
So when you say staff, are you actually talking about all the department heads and the town manager?
In what context are you talking about?
It's mentioned tonight, about staff, and I sit here and I go, well, when you reference staff.
Typically, it's department heads and administration.
Thank you.
James?
Good evening, Select Board and Finance. This is James Garzone, 84 North Plain Road. Thank you for taking my call. I apologize if I'm repeating a couple of things. Thank you for the Finance Department and Chris also mentioning, we spend a lot of time on the town budget, but we know where this is driving, as Chris said, capital, insurance costs in the school. I'm not going to talk about the school because that's hopeless. What I do want to say is I hope now, we all take the expenses seriously. I'm looking at my sewer bill right now for $825 for 6 months. That's not even including my high real estate taxes. But is there something that we can look back and look forward? All these decisions we're making with increased costs, how it's impacting our community, who's coming in, who's being driven out, what are the changes? If I'm going to talk about the school, we know the school enrollment is down, significantly over the past 10 years. In order to make up the numbers, we have to increase our choice in so we can continue to have a school with 400 kids at the moment. But if we look at the trend for lower grades, it's going to be in the 300 soon. And who knows what the mix is of choice in and community kids in the three towns. But that doesn't really matter. My point is the decisions that we're making, increasing our taxes and driving people out, who's coming in? Our second homeowners coming in with less kids are going to drive the enrollment even lower. Are we losing the people that work at our restaurants, at our hospitals, our firefighters? We're replacing them with people who aren't being replaced, those essential people. Like I'm so at a loss of words and exasperation over the past years, how we just increase costs because we need to fund for bridges, we need to fund our schools, we need to fund, but we're driving the people out that we need. We're driving out our senior citizens who are living on fixed incomes. This school tax is going to drive them out. They're going to have to make hard decisions between putting food on the table, paying utilities. They have to pay their real estate taxes. They have to pay, the sewer bill. They have to pay all these things. I would like for us to look at what has happened 5 years prior and what's going to happen 5 to 10 years in the future. What are we doing with our community? The other communities, the Lenox, Lee, Stockbridge, they're doing a lot better financially, of course, and that's because they have businesses to drive their tax revenues. What do we have? We have cannabis. That was a loss. Now looking, 2020 hindsight, of course. We thought cannabis would be a solution for revenue. That has not been the case. So what are we left with? Simon's Rock is being sold. Who knows what that's going to happen? Last thing we need is another tourist attraction. We need businesses to drive our tax revenues. Our poor businesses leaders, they're it's like a whack-a-mole. 2 businesses leave, 1 opens. It's like constantly, and they're struggling. I speak to them. I honestly do speak to our business owners. They think I'm crazy, but I speak to them. I say, what are the challenges? Hiring people, higher expenses, the taxes. That's what I hear over and over again. I know I speak to them. I go to these restaurants. I go to other places. They say the same thing, but we need a new school, right? We definitely need that. But we are really changing the fabric of our community and we're losing it. We're losing the people we need. And it just, I don't know what to do. I keep on looking at my real estate bill and my sewer bill and every bill I get. I really feel so badly for so many of our community people. So I'm sorry I'm exasperated and I don't know what the solution is, but I would love for us to look at what we're doing. Thank you.
Anyone else? Michelle?
Steve, if I can make a comment, I agree with Mr. Garzoni because,
This isn't on the agenda, so just,
okay,
yeah,
just as a general comment.
yeah.
And that we really have to take a close look. I agree with him, take a close look at it. When I was appointed to the finance committee, I was barraged by people contacting me. What are we going to do? I'm being forced out of the community. So as part of the finance committee, you know, looking at the economic situation where we are to, we need to look at that. And I agree with Madonna discussing the cap. It shows we are looking at it, we're looking, but then at the end of the day, if we just vote yes for everything, we shoot it out of the water, so. It's a good effort.
Thank you, Michelle.
Want to clarify, so you're gonna send me, Ally, what the big projects?
You want a list of what to spend, what
Yes.
those are?
Yes, yes, you will.
Thanks.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay. We're gonna adjourn the joint meeting. Thank you, Finance Committee. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you all.
Select Board's announcements, statements. Bill, Ben,
Just to echo the code red alert that went out today, that if anyone like me lives in the vicinity of the Houstonic School, Wednesday, 6:30 PM, they will be doing a sprinkler test on the new school project, which is expected to roil the waters in the surrounding area. So, please be advised that we're probably gonna see some brown water on top of the brown water that we've already been seeing over the last few weeks. So-
let's wait a minute. I didn't see Garfield leave, so let's wait a minute. My bad.
Can they give a time for that? I didn't.
Yeah, it's scheduled for 6:30 PM specifically to kind of
Yeah.
happen later in the day outside of most hours.
Thank you.
So Select Board's announcement, statements. Garfield, do you have anything?
I do, I have a couple of things. One, the light that is down by, right across from Trotters and the Great Barrington Dispensary goes off continually all the time. It's not needed to push, it's just blinks and has that blinking sound constantly. And I've called, probably 2 or 3 months ago to make that notation, and it has not changed. I don't know if that's costing us money or not, but if it is, I'd like it to stop.
Is
so
it the
doesn't bother.
crosswalk
Yeah.
flashers?
Yeah, constantly, because I'm there, I know it's happening. The other thing is, I personally, being a senior and having a somewhat fixed income, I would sure like to see the sewer bill not so close to my real estate taxes bill. It's 3 or 4 days, there's a lot of seniors are getting whacked with a $400, $500, $600, $700 sewer bill, and 3 days later, they have to pay their real estate taxes. I just think that's too close, and it makes it too difficult, I think, for people. I personally, I don't know how it can be done, but I don't think that's a great idea. I would love to see it
Okay.
change.
Thanks. Eric?
Yeah, a few things. Just one, I had the opportunity this weekend to go to the Latin Festival right here behind Town Hall. That was, just wanted to give a shout out to the organizers of that because that was a great time. A lot of amazing food and just had some good conversations with a lot of good people. So I want to state that, and then this past week, we had a great HIC meeting. We had an update from David Carver discussing the Housatonic School, which I just felt I should update everybody, probably some more ears here. David Carver, he did have a little bit of a delay and he was hoping the project would be done this fall, but now he's got everything in order and he's been working, has his crews there. And he's hoping to start filling it with tenants this coming spring. So it was good to talk to him. A very productive meeting we had this last time. And also Fred Clark from the Affordable Housing Trust came to the HIC meeting and just wanted everybody to get the word, that he is gonna be holding, the Affordable Housing Trust will be holding a meeting at the Hoosie Dome on October 4th from 11 to 12 to discuss, the Rising Field, situation, and it's, you know, anybody that has any concerns, thoughts, or suggestions should attend this meeting. And make sure your voice is heard there, so. Thank you.
Thank you. Town manager report.
Just two things briefly. I wanted to bring you up to date on the planning board's efforts related to the open space and recreation plan. Started working on that over the summer with consultants from Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. The goal is to update that plan and have it submitted to the state by the end of the year. The OSRP makes us eligible for certain open space and recreation grants from the state. And it's a process by which the town evaluates its open space and recreation needs and vision for the next 5 to 10 years. The process begins with a survey, which will be launched shortly this week. We will have that survey open for about 6 weeks until early to mid-November. There'll be a couple of forums. The first one in, I think, early December at the planning board meeting, and followed by another forum to discuss the results of the survey, as well as begin some visioning with community members. That will be in early January. I think we'll hold it on a Saturday. I think we're considering something like that. So please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll try to keep you up to date on that.
I do. I do, and I'd like to meet with you. Soon as
Great.
I can.
Great.
Anything
Yeah.
else, Garfield? No?
Just in terms of the next item here, folks may have already seen the information out there for the November 4th election relative to the school project. It's a little interesting this year because all 3 towns are voting at once. And the hours are a little bit different than you may think. The hours will be from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's a maximum window set by state law in this case. So instead of your usual 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., just want to get out ahead of that, so you all know it's only an 8-hour voting window, November 4th, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. There is not early voting. There is absentee voting if you're not here in person, but there won't be early voting. There's information on our website. We'll continue to push information out, as I'm sure the other towns will. If you have any questions, just let us know.
Sorry, can I ask why is there a limitation on the hours for this election day?
As I said, it's in state law. I don't know why. I asked the superintendent probably 3 times.
Mhm.
That's what the law specifically says, no more than 8 hours.
The election day, normal election day are different, right?
I had the same question.
If
I had the same
If
question.
this was a normal election day, in other words, there were a contest here, we could be open 8 to 8. But that ballot could only be there for 8 of those hours. Sometimes if you try to make sense of state law, you get ahead of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I hear what you said, I don't understand it, so
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
I would say that's 100% of the state doesn't understand it, but someone came up with that.
So there's gonna be probably people showing up at the ballot locations 8, 9 a.m. in the morning.
Well, hopefully we get the word out.
That's what we'll be trying to do.
Yeah.
What,
Probably a code red at some point, I would assume.
what's the plan for getting the word out?
Yeah, we'll definitely do code reds and other social media. And folks who think they want to vote should, encouraged to call the town clerk in your town to make sure you're registered now.
Anything else? Mr. Stetson? Okay. Approval of minutes. Can we do this as one or as
I believe everybody was at all these meetings, yeah.
Okay, good. I thought no. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of August 25th, September 8th, and September 18th, all of 2025 as written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any changes, questions, deletions? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Licenses and permits, application for a temporary liquor license, Berkshire South Regional Community Center for toasting and tasting fundraiser, 15 Chrissy Road, Saturday, October 4th, from 5 PM to 9 PM. Is someone here? Here we go. You want to just give us a little explanation?
Hi, everybody.
And
First of all,
your
I
name
just,
and address?
yes, I am a renter. I live at 147 Maple Avenue. My husband and I recently moved here. I'm the new Director of Development at Berkshire South.
Okay, your name?
Lorelei Randa.
Thank you. And a little explanation? Short
Sure.
explanation?
First of all, I just want to thank you for the work that you do on the select board. It was interesting and hard. So thank you for that. The Berkshire South has an event coming up called Toasting and Tasting on October 4th, hosted from 5 to 8 PM at the center. It's a food and wine pairing, featuring foods from Italy, Greece, and France. We have tip certified bartenders serving all of our alcohol. We expect about 150 guests. You're all welcome to attend. Yeah, there'll be a silent and live auction, plenty of food, and should wrap up by 8 PM.
Thank you. Do you have a motion?
I just have.
Well, please take motion first.
I make a motion to approve a temporary entertainment, or no, so application. Let me start over. I make a motion for a temporary liquor license for Berkshire South Regional Community Center for their toasting and tasting fundraiser at 15 Chrissy Road, Saturday, October 4th, 2025, from 5 to 9 PM.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Sure, go right ahead.
All right, I believe, Laurel, I said 5 to 8, this is 5 to 9, what's the difference, Laurel?
The serving of alcohol should be done by 8 o'clock. We're hoping to wrap everybody up and get them out of the door by 9 o'clock.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laurel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next is, I'm gonna recuse myself on B because I'm a member of the Rotary Club.
Yep.
Eric, go right ahead.
So next we have a application for temporary entertainment license for the Great Barrington Rotary Truck Day and Pumpkin Fest. That Steve Butternut, who do we have to?
Mark Cassell representing the Rotary Club.
So you wanna give a brief explanation and some advertisements?
17th year of Truck Day, so for those of you that haven't been to it, it's a great event. We bring in all kinds of big equipment, school buses, excavators, dump trucks, and the kids get to go in and hit the horn and crawl around and have a great day. So we have a silent auction there as well. We have a food truck that has cider and donuts, and Butternut is our host. They serve food. We have a duck race in the stream, and then we end with a giant pumpkin being dropped from a crane at 100 feet. So
Nice. That sounds like a good time.
it is a good time.
So,
I have to admit, I've never been, but is there, admission price?
Yes, so it's $20 for a car. So that's
Same as it's been.
what's that?
The same as it's been.
Same as been for the last
That's
4 or
nice
5
to have.
years. Yes.
Okay.
So load up the neighborhood kids and come on down.
all right.
Climb on the truck too. Don't
Hey.
worry.
Can I get a motion, please?
Yeah, so I make a motion to allow the temporary license for the Great Barrington Rotary for their Truck Day and Pumpkin Fest at Ski Butternut 380 State Road, October 19th, from 2025, from 10 AM to 3 PM.
Second. Excellent. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, before.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, new business. Appointment to the Agricultural Commission. James Macy is here. He's here. He's here. Do you want to say anything?
Sure.
You're here. He's actually part of, I gotta let you talk.
Yeah.
All right. Hello, everyone. James Massey, Health Inspector here for the town of Barrington. Also, been in the, area with the Berkshires for many years as a chef. And then I saw this vacancy, talked to Vivian. I thought, I come from a long, line of farming in my family from Northern California to Oregon and parts of Washington. So, a mixture of all of that between the many of years. And of course, I wrote the letter of interest to give an overview, but, there's a real passion for farming, working with our amazing farmers here in the Berkshires. And, celebrating the product, being their voice with our guest clients and things that you do as a chef, right? So, it really spoke to me, and I have a really big interest in it. My one uncle was ag chem commissioner, or ag inspector, I should say. The other one was the commissioner of Siskiyou County for the ag department there in Northern California. So we've been a part of like FFA and a lot of those programs over the years. So again, it's kind of like a mixture, a melting pot with me. So I thought, I want to do this. So,
Hey, thanks, I appreciate you for your name. Do you have a motion?
thanks.
Yes, I make a motion to appoint James Macy to the Agricultural Commission.
Do I have a second?
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to ask you a little, did you pronounce it Massey?
Massey.
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 Yeah, that's.
Eric and I pronounce it Macy. It must be the southern version pronunciation.
Sorry about
Southern part of the-
Appointment to the Conservation Commission, Jeff Cohn. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to appoint Jeffrey Cohen to the Conservation Commission.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Host community agreements. So we would vote to execute revised host community agreements with Theory Wellness, High-Minded and Community Growth Partners in accordance with the terms of the settlement agreement. Chris, do you have anything you want to add to that?
There's not much to add, and town council's on the line if you have any specific questions. But you'll recall that, things have been in limbo with these three companies, given the litigation. As part of the settlement, we will execute new agreements with these companies. They're the standard agreement in line with the state regulations and our previous practice with our more recent establishments. So all of these graphs are in your packets, and we look for a separate motion for each one of them.
Do I have a first motion?
Sorry, can I just ask before we do that?
Yes.
Chris and David, do you mind just giving for the record, just a kind of a quick summary of what is new about this version of post community agreement versus the old ones?
Well, certainly, and maybe you could promote David. The key element being the community impact fee provision, which has now been updated. And I'll let David speak more to how the HCA's have been updated.
David, go right ahead.
I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, I heard the precise question, but was it?
So Ben was asking how this community agreement is different than our previous ones.
Yes, the primary difference is to account for the change in state law under Chapter 94G that now does not allow for a community impact fee to just be a straight percentage of receipts, and specifies, together with the regulations of the Cannabis Control Commission, that on an annual basis, the applicable municipality needs to send to the establishment essentially an account of those particular costs that were incurred on account of that establishment. So it basically requires an annual review and specification of costs, if any, that are identified by a city or town on account of operation of a particular business.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Sure, someone feels
Phil, go ahead.
Just drafting, David, on that community impact fee paragraph. I think you may have duplicated that phrase, the costs imposed upon the municipality.
If there's a typo or a duplication, I'll certainly correct that. The vote tonight would be to approve subject to final review by council. And we also will have obviously signature by authorized representative of each of the establishments. So the board can vote tonight, and then once we have the final document, if you will, you would then be able to just sign individually at your convenience.
Maybe another question is, the community impact paragraph always refers to, basically, what's the term? It's, so it refers to the terms of the definition of community impact as of the date of this agreement. But it's also referring to the commission's regulations, which are basically controlled by the commission. So is the agreement going to be struck at the language existing as of the date we sign it, or over time, if the commission changes the definition of a community impact fee, will this agreement change along with it?
The agreement is intended to comply with state law and regulation. So if that is adjusted, it would, by operation of that change, become a part of the agreement. And the statement, I think that maybe you're referring to on page 3 with the definition of community impact fee, states the party's acknowledgement of the definition as of the time of the agreement. And the other thing to note is that,
I'm sorry, I'm not, so what is the answer then? Are we locking in as of the date of the agreement, the language that we're using, which is the state language on their website, and copied here, or again, if that language is evolved over time according to the state, do we change along with it?
I think the best way to answer that is that we are attempting to do both. I would not want to say that if, for instance, there's an amendment that would materially change the substance of the agreement in the state law or the state regulations, that we are agreeing to that. And what we are doing is acknowledging that essentially the fee is designed to reimburse a city or town for actual costs imposed by operation of an establishment. It specifies the state regulation term, but if as a matter of law, the community impact fee that is collectible is changed, or the definition of that is changed, it would be difficult, I think, to suggest that the agreement would remain with an old term. But what I would want to add also is that under the new law, the fees may only be collected essentially for 8 years of operation, so that those are going to sunset, if you will. But the agreement contains other terms regarding the manner in which a business operates, reports, and compliance, et cetera. So each of these agreements is for a term of 5 years from the effective date, which is at end of August. And for that reason, the term of the agreement, at least as to, for example, Theory Wellness, will run beyond the time for which impact fees would be payable or could be payable.
Well, that was my next question, because in the next page, well, this next page, what I see is a 9-year sunset.
It-
So.
Right,
regardless of what-
which is the
so
standard.
When Erie gets to its 9 years of business, they're out of the community impact fees.
That's correct. Yeah. And that language with the 9 is the commission's language, even though the statute refers to 8 years of operation, but it's one of those things where depending on begin, you could conceivably get into year 9, but it's consistent with the model language that the commission has put into a document. The document we're using is a modified version of that model. It's substantially the same, but there are some provisions that are particular to Great Barrington. And this is the same model that was used some months ago for other establishments, new establishments in town, so that all of the establishments are being given the same terms and therefore being treated on the same basis.
So this was in our other Great Barrington host agreements?
Yes.
Yes, right.
In a similar way, there's the limit on 3% of gross sales. Is that another Great Barrington host agreement?
That is still a limit, but under the law now, you are not permitted to specify as a default just a straight percentage of sales as the impact fee. It is a requirement now that, as I said, annually, there needs to be an accounting, if you will, for any particular costs imposed on the community and therefore payable by the establishment.
What I'm trying to understand is, again, this is an extreme case, but if we had a legitimate bill for one of the cannabis stores that qualified under the new community impact fee language, to me, this is saying that that bill will only be reimbursed to us as long as it's within 3% of gross sales for that year.
And that's correct, yes. That would be a ceiling.
Is that a new provision or is that in the older agreement?
The prior agreements stated that automatically the percentage was what was payable. This is now stating a ceiling on the payment if you were to get to that point, as your example suggests, after an accounting.
Well, but just so everyone's clear, there's prior agreements and then there's an agreement in between that we have with a store that has this new language in it. So the prior agreements is what David is talking about, because that was under the prior law. Then there's a revised agreement that we approved for I believe just one place in town. And then this is the same as that one.
Okay.
That may not have made it any clearer, but I tried.
Yeah, the most recent agreements were from end of 2024 and beginning of 2025.
Yeah.
Just to conclude on the prior point about the definition of community impact fee, I hear what you're saying about you kind of like keep our optionality on these changes, but there's a level of vagueness in the way you drafted it. So if the state changes their definition of what's allowable for community impact fees, to me, it's not clear how that feeds into this agreement.
I will certainly agree that the language is not the best. Most of the language, if not all, that you're referring to comes from the state model, and the attempt was to use language that would pass muster, but also at the same time be locally enforceable. So what we are attempting to do here is work within the guardrails that we have from the state, but we also have some particular substantive provisions in the document, most notably being the indemnification clause, that are a local provision. And again, that form has previously been approved by the commission.
A question that maybe I should know the answer to, but I don't. Has the language changed in the sense that now the monies can be used for something other than, let's say, what it was, which had to be marijuana related, like you needed Tom's, which
it has to be a cost specifically related to operation of the business. So it's almost a sort of after the fact, if you will, by virtue of the timing provision and the sort of accounting concept.
So you'll bear with me. So
I'm trying.
So hypothetical scenario is that we have some bad outcome, drug misuse incident in town, and Southern Berkshire Ambulance is called to address the unfortunate circumstance and take someone to the hospital. So when that person doesn't have insurance. So fast forward to our next budget process, Southern Berkshire Ambulance has an operating deficit, and we have, the last couple of years, been offsetting that operating deficit. So it's a little bit convoluted in terms of the chain of events, but that's an instance where the town is essentially footing the bill for a negative outcome directly connected to a particular cannabis store. So under that, again, somewhat extreme example, do you feel that would qualify as a reimbursable expense under community impact?
I would answer it this way. I wouldn't put that scenario outside the permissible scope of the agreement, provided that we could connect all the dots in a situation such as the one you described.
Eric, do I have a motion?
I move to approve the new host community agreement between the town and marijuana establishment Theory Wellness Incorporated, as presented to the board at this meeting and subject to final review by town council.
Do I have a second?
Could you add and to authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the board?
And authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the board.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next motion, please.
I move to approve the new host community agreement between the town and marijuana establishment High Minded LLC, doing business as Farnsworth, as presented to the board at this meeting and subject to final review by town council and signed by chair of the board.
Second. Discussion. All in favor? Unanimous.
The final one. I move to approve the new host community agreement between the town and marijuana establishment Community Growth Partners, Great Barrington Operations LLC, doing business as Rebel, as presented to the board at this meeting and subject to final review by town council and authorize the chair to sign.
Do I have a second?
Second with question.
Question.
The question actually isn't about what we're speaking of. We still have that peak. Is that gonna fall under one of these jurisdictions if they ever open?
What our hopes would be is that every host community agreement will follow this format. Yes. There has to be a host community agreement in order for them to open, and this is our host community agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next is an update on the status of the host community agreement with OBCC LLC for 82 Railroad.
The board, this was in your packet tonight also, and a section of that particular host community agreement is highlighted for you. There was a contingency in that agreement on page 5, item 4G, which essentially said that the company needed to make certain improvements to the building at 82 Railroad Street within 8 months of the January 2025 signature. In other words, not later than September 13th, 2025. So, and it read that the agreement was contingent upon that happening. We have not been notified that that has happened. We did send the company a letter in August saying this is sort of a 30-day heads up that this deadline is coming. We received an email or two saying we'll get more information. We did not receive more information. So in my view, based on that contingency clause of the HCA with OBCC LLC, the HCA is no longer in effect, and we can provide notice to that company that is so. They can always apply for a new one if they are moving forward.
So, I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, let me just,
Yeah,
I think Chris saw this, but he may not have. They've requested a month's extension is what they did in, it's some email today that came through.
Okay,
Yeah, and Chris maybe, so I'll read it. I'm not in favor of it, but I'm just reading. Natalie, I understand we are on tonight's agenda. Our update for the select board is we're attempting to move forward, having some difficulties with the original license holders and negotiating next steps. We would request a month's extension on the HCA to provide the select board with additional information and discuss moving forward. Garfield, ask your question.
My question. I didn't have.
Okay, I thought you had.
I was just saying that.
Yeah, so,
Thing in my head.
so the fact remains is that they can, if we agree with Chris tonight, which there's no reason not to, I mean, the date's passed, they can apply for a new one.
Yeah.
But, we gave them 8 months, they said they wanted 8 months.
The way I look at it, that building's been sitting there with promises of something happening to it for a while now, since I've been on the board, even before it
Yeah, even
actually.
before that.
So, and after this one, I actually proposed to put this 8 months in there. And I'm not in town every day, but I'm in town a lot of days, and I haven't seen even a paintbrush being moved over there, so,
I mean, anecdotally, I can say as someone who is
yeah,
very close to that building almost every single day,
Yeah.
I have not seen a single person.
right.
I think the expectation when we did this is they would be very close to opening in that 8 months, and that's what he led us to believe. So even if we gave him 30 days, nothing's gonna change.
Nothing's
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're talking about their negotiating financial arrangements. with
Exactly.
partners.
Right.
It's about retaining the construction improvements, right?
Right.
Yeah, Garfield.
Is there any reason why we have to let them apply again? And how
Yeah,
many?
you have to let them apply, we don't have to give them.
I'm hoping, either one of them, I'm not for a lot of giving them
Yeah.
jack. if it's
So-
when it's done.
So, go ahead, Chris, I'm sorry. So if I don't hear a motion to extend it for 30 days, I am more than happy to, move on to a citizen speak time.
yeah,
So
there's
no need
action.
to.
There's no action
Motion
today.
to rescind?
No, because as Chris said, it's gone past the deadline.
We'll provide them notice.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, the notice is,
That,
so sorry, Charlie.
yeah, probably legal terms, David, will write better than that.
So sorry, that Charlie doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're all set, you're done.
The front room's supposed to be on?
It's sticks. It was,
Looks like it's one. Just so you know.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Donna Jacob.
Let me, hold on. Yeah, it is, you're okay, I just wanna make sure we're all set. Let me just announce citizen speak time, I just asked you to come on. Yeah, don't take my glory away from me. Citizen speak time.
Hi, Donna Jacobs, 260 Park Street. And it does seem that getting the word out is a challenge in this town. I've heard 2 words tonight. One was about a code red, and we're gonna get groundwater on top of groundwater, and it's the first I heard of it. And I'm not on the code red system because I can't handle all the notifications. But I thought that HWW would notify us if they were gonna do any flushing or
But
whatever.
just to be clear, they're not flushing,
When
there's
they
a
do it.
test of the sprinkler system at Housatonic
It
School.
involves,
Oh.
it involves flushing those.
Right, but it's not initiated by
And it's, I
Housatonic Water.
believe it's specifically for the area surrounding.
Okay,
the school.
all right,
Village center,
okay.
so I
Is the
figured-
advisory under those circumstances for people not to turn on their taps until it's kind of gotten away?
Yes.
Yeah, because otherwise, if you have a filter, it's gonna
It's
get all
gone.
gunked up. The other bit of information regarding affordable housing and the meeting on October 4th, which is this Saturday at 11 o'clock, to discuss the rising ball field. While I was at the webinar they had on Friday, there's also a meeting on October 13th from 6:30 to 7:30, and it would be really good if people knew. Nobody knows. You know, they have a flyer, I haven't seen it anywhere, and getting the word out is a problem. Why do I care about rising ball fields? It's across the street from my house. So, you know, I kind of want to have an input on the plan and the design of the structures, if that's allowed, but that's not why I came tonight. I came to say something that I also putting the word out, and I think it is newsworthy. I hope the media sitting in tonight will take note and see what you make of it.
because I can't get letters to the newspapers, the papers are too complicated to try to get into online, so I will say it, here is the news. To report a remedy for the water crisis in Housatonic, Stockbridge, and West Stockbridge. It's a long-term clean water project on the model of humanitarian organizations that focus on sustainable water solutions for communities without safe water access. This can involve building wells, installing filtration systems, and providing training for maintenance. What I'd like to share with everyone is that we've started this citizens initiative to install whole house filtration systems into people's homes. And it's kind of based on the model of what's going on in new construction with affordable housing like Prosperity Way that is installing filtration systems in construction. I don't know why they're using reverse osmosis. It sounds to me like it's going to waste a lot of water, but that's what they've chosen. Okay. So I have an ask. I'm asking this group, people listening in, people in this room, to support the project. To back it up, to encourage it, to find ways of helping to make it happen. It's not simple, it's complicated, it's a lot of work. I've already done a bunch of work, and the project can use your moral support, if not your pocketbook. But I'd like that chronic crisis in water supply that exists, and what I'd like is your pocketbook in the game. I just skipped a line. I want to get to something really kind of touchy. I think any regular citizens anywhere who hear that chronic crises in water supply exists here in the Berkshires would be surprised. The idyllic place of peace and nature and well-being is not consistent with the fact that people, 800 households affected, not all getting groundwater, but the people are had struggled with water insecurity for decades. As people learn about this struggle, it's actually a dirty secret. I think they're going to get behind the project because they're going to want to right what is wrong with these people not having safe water. And I believe they will help. Rates are going up, security in the water is unchanged, it's time to mobilize, and we're getting started. I ask for all your support and suggestions and ideas, yes.
I ask you to clarify, you used a couple of we's and they's.
Yes.
Phil, this is not on the agenda, so we don't have discussion. So it violates the open meeting law. That they need to be as clear,
Who's they?
They need to be as clear as possible.
I could be clearer by saying it's coalescing among citizens.
Okay.
And we're calling it water for my neighbor, but then we came up with something else, and so it might have a better name by the time it's launched.
Thank you. And keep updating us. Jim, I'm gonna go back and forth, so yeah, that's good. Jim, go right ahead.
Hi, 84 North Plain Road, James Garzone again. First, I don't want to sound like I'm always complaining. I know we have a new member in our community and she was thankful for all you do, and I feel the same. So let me just start off with that. Second of all, Bill brings up a great point about the host agreement. There is absolutely no way we have the time to monitor all the expenses for the cannabis and then assign it to a specific vendor or just generally. You know, we have police, we have the hospitals, we have the community. There was an article written 2 weeks ago how our youth are increasing the cannabis use and alcohol. And that's another thing I've mentioned over and over. We do have a problem in our community with drugs and alcohol. I mean, I can't believe the amount of alcohol we have in our community. Per capita, we must have the greatest on earth between the liquor and the bars. But my point is, there's no way to hold these cannabis establishments accountable. It's just impossible. And my last point is affordable housing. Big crisis we have, yet we're trying to get people to these homes, and rightfully so. But how are these people going to afford when they get these homes, the high real estate, all the other expenses that go along, things that we have no control, like insurance, which has been increasing. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Michelle.
I'm Michelle Bear, 70 Division Street. You were talking about code red. Did that go out today or?
I believe what he said, and is that,
Sorry, just.
I believe it only went out for the neighbors around.
Oh, okay.
That's why you wanted
It's
that
not
one.
code red, which I love.
Yeah,
You know,
I
and
did too.
sometimes it's applicable,
You know,
sometimes it
Chris, for
isn't.
It,
So.
I think it was, yeah, it's targeted to
To the,
directly affect it. It went out
people
around
impacted, which I think is.
Most likely.
Right,
4:30-ish.
and I'm not.
I won't swear 100%, but I'm sure that's. I'm
Village,
sure that's
village
what they did.
center.
Yeah.
Village center.
Yes.
America, I have a
Village center.
I have a lot of And also, I appreciate the work that's being done here, but I'm on Housatonic Water and no one's reached out to me, so I'm totally in the dark what you're doing. So, you know, communication is very difficult. I know on Housatonic Neighbors, I have dirty water, you know, you constantly hear it. I try to encourage people to get in the meeting room and talk to their elected officials because I just think it's really important to get off of social media and into the room. I go to people, you'd be surprised what you hear when you're actually sitting in the room. And you can make an impact. I said, I have brought up that this is an opportunity, what I'm doing right now, to address our town leadership. And so, you know, posting a thumbs up isn't going to fix the problem. So thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Michelle. Claudia, go right ahead.
Claudia Shapiro, 78 Vermont Lane Road. So I'm asking again that you post the July 21st and the August 11th.
It's still not up? Okay, I'm sorry, Claudia. I apologize.
And I'm not okay with the new selection of Marie Ryan as town administrator.
Well, we haven't selected those 3 interviews tomorrow.
Well, I understand that, but I'm gonna be very honest because I am just a brutally honest person. I've known throughout, I'm gonna call this the whole charade with the town manager, that it was gonna be either Marie Ryan or Joe Abigail. So thank you.
Well, you know more than I do. Okay, anyone else? Select board time. Bill,
Nothing,
Ben, Garfield,
nothing.
All set, thank you.
and I have nothing. Media time. Seeing no one, do I have a motion?
Almost lost it there, yes. I make a motion to move the board to meet in executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A6 for the following purpose: to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate regarding Housatonic Waterworks, because an open discussion may have a detrimental effect on the negotiation position of the town, of the board and the town.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We will not return to open session, and an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. Roll call vote, Bill? Ben?
Aye.
Garfield?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
And I, it's unanimous. We will now go into executive session.